Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to Live at the Library of Congress. I'm Clay Smith. I'm the literary director here at the library, and I just wanted to say very briefly that we are thrilled to have Aubrey R and Emily Black here. These two women are a literary director's dream. I am someone who puts on a lot of book events during the year. My department curates the lineup for the National Book Festival, and we do a lot of events here in this venue and in other venues here at the library. And in fact, we released the lineup for the National Book Festival on Tuesday. So check it out at loc.gov/bookfest. Lots of great writers on August 24th for you all to check out at the Washington Convention Center. It's all free. National Book Festival is a big gift to the public. But back to these ladies. The reason that they are dream writers for someone like me who puts on a lot of book events is that they take really good care of their readers and their readership. You may already follow them on social media, but Aubrey R and Emily Black have really created a strong community around the National Treasure films and around their book. And of course, the Library of Congress, we have a few little secrets here, and you may or may not know that we end up in the films. So I just wanted to say welcome to everybody. Thanks for being here at Live at the Library. Emily and Aubrey are going to take it from here, and they are going to do a signing at the end of the event, and we're going to have some time for questions from you all, so be thinking of those. And lastly, if you are going to ask a question, then you, or participate in this event in any way, then you are giving us consent to put you on video and audio when we put this event on our YouTube channel and on the library site. And there is a brief audience participation moment in this event, so you've been forewarned. So thank you. Let's welcome Emily and Aubrey.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. How are we doing this evening? Good. All right. Well, my name is Aubrey R.
I'm Emily Black.
And we are National Treasure Hunt. We are the podcast, book, and walking tour taking an ocular device to the National Treasure film franchise. We are so grateful to the Library of Congress for having us here this evening to help celebrate the opening of the Treasures Gallery. Emily and I had a chance to see it this afternoon, and it is spectacular.
Yes, you should absolutely, like when you're done, get book signed, whatever, you should go check it out because it is phenomenal.
Absolutely. But for the next 40 minutes or so, we are going to examine a different type of treasure, the National Treasure film franchise, okay, which celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive in with an interactive presentation, followed by you asking us all of your burning National Treasure questions, maybe even questions about National Treasure 3. And yeah, that's the reaction I was looking for. And then we will be signing copies of our book, which are available for purchase from the library gift shop at the back of the room. But we have so much to get into, so we should probably dive right in by addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah. So, who here has seen National Treasure?
Woo!
Oh, okay, that's a great response. How about Book of Secrets, the second one? Okay, so a few less, a few of you stopped at one, but that's okay, we won't hold it against you. So, believe it or not, the inspiration for the story of National Treasure came when story writer and creator Charles Segars visited the National Archives and noticed that there was a lack of a line outside the archives itself. So, Charles Segars visited the archives in about the 1990s. He was doing some research for a Lewis and Clark miniseries that he was involved in, and he had the chance, as many of us do when we visit the archives, to take a look at the Charters of Freedom. He saw the Declaration of Independence, and he saw the state that the Declaration of Independence was in, and he also got a chance to learn about the preservation efforts for the Declaration. And he just kind of had this thought of, this is this remarkable document, and there aren't as many people, really, as we would like here to see it. So how do I get people to come see this? And his answer was, let's make National Treasure.
Yeah.
Bold, but...
And frankly, it worked. You know, there are still people who visit the National Archives to see the Declaration and ask questions about National Treasure to this day, 20 years later. So yeah, National Treasure, the first film, premieres to the public in November of 2004, 20 years ago. It ends up grossing $350 million against a $100 million budget. It was a huge success for Disney that was actually kind of unexpected. And once that success was realized, the second film was immediately greenlit. So National Treasure 2: Book of Secrets will come out 3 years later in December of 2007, and it actually surpasses its predecessor in terms of success, grossing $460 million. So that's kind of the background, the backstory of these films. Astute viewers of the films will know that the Library of Congress actually features in both of the films. So the first movie, we actually have our intrepid treasure protector, Benjamin Franklin Gates, aka Nicolas Cage. You know, one and the same. He leads his treasure hunting team on an expedition that starts in the Arctic Circle. It takes them right here to Washington, D.C., where they infamously steal the Declaration of Independence. Then they follow their treasure clue trail to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and ultimately end up in New York City, where they find the legendary Templar treasure beneath Trinity Church. Now there is a moment, I'm not sure if you can see, no, you won't be able to see the pointer, but in that second picture at the top, a brief moment where our characters end up in the main reading room here at the library. But the Library of Congress doesn't really take center stage until National Treasure 2. And for that reason, we are going to really focus on National Treasure 2 for the most of our conversation today. But in order to do that, I think we need a refresher on the plot.
We do. Aubrey, do you want me to take this part?
You don't have the best track record with that?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll handle that. We'll dive right in.
Okay.
So for
You're lucky. It's better this way.
So, by way of reminder, our film starts with our villain, Mitch Wilkinson, played by Ed Harris, who comes forward with one of the missing John Wilkes Booth diary pages. And on the diary page is a bit of writing that suggests that Ben Gates' ancestor, Thomas Gates, was actually part of the Lincoln assassination. This does not go over well with Ben. So he takes it upon himself. He must prove his ancestor's innocence, and he's going to do that by finding the treasure his ancestor was protecting. So, after examining this Booth diary page, our characters find a cipher on it, which, once decoded, leads them to the Statue of Liberty, not in New York, but in Paris, France. A clue on the torch of the Statue of Liberty leads them to London, at Buckingham Palace, to be exact, where they find a centuries-old Olmec plank with glyphs on it. But the plank has a twin, and they have reason to believe that that second plank is actually found back here in Washington, D.C., in the Oval Office, in the resolute desk that the President of the United States uses. Unfortunately, after a lot of effort of getting into the Oval Office, the plank isn't actually there. It's been replaced by a stamp indicating that the whereabouts of the plank, or at least what's on it, can only be found in the President's Book of Secrets. To gain access to the book, Ben has to accost the President at his birthday party at Mount Vernon down the street.
Please don't do that. We are not suggesting anybody do that.
We will not be held responsible. But the President tells him that the Book of Secrets is located where? The Library of Congress, of course. After taking a look at the book, our treasure hunters head off to Mount Rushmore, where they eventually, beneath Mount Rushmore, sort of in caverns beneath it, will end up finding the legendary City of Gold. And that's sort of your National Treasure 2 in 2 minutes, all right? But for the purposes of this evening, we're really gonna hone in on one particular scene, or like the scenes leading up to one scene, and that's this one, right?
Yeah. So, like, how did we get to the Library of Congress, you might be asking?
And it's a good question. And I think to start answering it, we need to take a look at Ben Gates' headspace in the moments, the scenes leading up to this one, where he's going to go on his second heist of this franchise. And in order to motivate that heist, we need to put ourselves in his headspace. Like, this is a historian who has just learned that the president's secret book is real. And the only way he's going to be able to see it is if he has a pretty successful one-on-one private conversation with the President of the United States. Which,
Super simple.
yeah, real easy to do. So he knows that if he's going to clear his ancestor's name, he is going to have to take some pretty drastic, decisive action. And to remind everyone what that drastic, decisive action is, I think we need a volunteer. We need a volunteer to reenact this scene with us. We have a script for you. You are going to be Ben Gates, and you're going to play opposite Emily, who's going to be Riley Poole and Patrick Gates. So who here has always wanted to know what it's like to be Nicolas Cage? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. All right. I saw this hand first. Come on up here to the center. I could take the folder.
So we're gonna face the cameras and the people. Here's your script, okay? So you're Ben, and I'm everything else. Okay? You wanna say action, Aubrey?
And action.
All I need is a few minutes with him.
A few minutes, really? Even if you were married to the president, you wouldn't be able to get a few minutes.
Not when he's surrounded by handlers. If I get him alone.
How do you expect to get the president alone?
Before the Civil War, the states were all separate. People used to say, the United States are. Wasn't until the war ended, people started saying the United States is. Under Lincoln, we became one nation.
And Lincoln paid for it with his life.
So did Thomas Gates.
Right.
With his life. So how am I gonna get him alone? I'm gonna kidnap him. I'm gonna kidnap the President of the United States.
Okay,
Woo!
round of applause.
Nicely done.
What is your name?
I'm Ashley.
Ashley. Okay, everybody give it up for Ashley once again, our true Ben Gates.
Nicely done. Oh my goodness. And just like that, you guys, we have what I would personally argue is the second most infamous heist of early 2000 cinema, second only to stealing the Declaration of Independence, of course. But, you know, we have seen the memes. We've seen social media. We see people making fun of stealing the Declaration of Independence and kidnapping the president and, frankly, Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage. And guess what? These heists are super entertaining. They're super rewatchable.
They are. I mean, yeah, that's why we're celebrating the 20th anniversary.
Absolutely. But what we hope to demonstrate to you in the rest of our time with you this evening is that the creators of National Treasure were actually incredibly clever in devising their heists. They're actually injecting myriad real-world elements into these heists that make them the fan favorite heists that we know and love still to this day, but also that make these seemingly impossible actions seem just a little bit plausible. Okay, so what we're going to do is walk through a few scenes related to our Library of Congress scene and the scenes leading up to it, and examine how the creators were able to inject science, ciphers, history, and just a hint of Hollywood movie magic to create the heists, specifically the National Treasure 2 heist that we know and love today. So to do that, I think we should start where, Emily, you and I often like to start, which is the science.
Yes, I mean, we are both scientists by training, so it makes sense that we start here.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so we actually first see science and technology in National Treasure 2 quite early on in the film when our characters, Ben Gates, Abigail Chase, and Riley Poole are examining this Booth diary page. But I think we've got to at least acknowledge the diary page for a minute.
We do, yeah. So, I mean, we're going to jump into more history later, but for right now, I just want to give you a little brief kind of intro into this. So, we all know who John Wilkes Booth is? Okay, cool. So, for those of you who weren't so confident, he is the person that assassinated Abraham Lincoln. A few months after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, John Wilkes Booth was killed in a barn, and in Virginia, actually. And on his person was found a diary. Now, this diary contained his handwriting, and in his handwriting, he had written mostly defenses of why he felt it good to assassinate the president, so like not great. But that diary is actually now on display just on the road at Ford's Theater. Now, you might have heard Aubrey mention a little earlier, like the missing page that Mitch Wilkinson, right, brought forth. So there are actually missing pages of Booth's diary. The interesting thing is that it is highly contested how many of those pages are missing. That is still something that we're not quite sure about, but we do know that they're missing.
Absolutely. Okay, so now that we've at least addressed this kind of quintessential clue in this story, let's take a look at what the characters are doing here. They're examining it using a technique called multispectral imaging. And this is a real-world technique that is used by various fields of study today, ranging from art conservation to biology to astronomy and more. Funnily enough, in the film, Abigail Chase purports to work here at the Library of Congress, and so this scene is supposed to be taking place here. Earlier versions of the script, however, had this taking place at the Smithsonian Institution, fun fact. But that's no matter. Here, I think it's interesting to examine what multispectral imaging is and how it might have helped our characters on their quest to examine the diary page. So I'm going to oversimplify just a little, but multispectral imaging is really a way of layering different types of data to examine a sample, such as this Booth diary page. The first part of this is the imaging. So you know how you have your cell phone camera or your professional camera, whatever you like to use, and that is able to capture images of things that we can see with the naked eye, right? Things visible in the visible light portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? In multispectral imaging, we're going to be looking at things that show up not just in the visible light, but also in infrared wavelengths, in ultraviolet, in X-ray, and kind of putting all of that imagery together to create one cohesive image. Now, on top of this, we're going to layer some additional information. I'm going to ask you to think back really hard to your high school chemistry class, okay? Think back to the periodic table, and you might remember that different elements, different chemical compositions will interact with these different wavelengths of light in different but characteristic ways. So we can look at different parts of our sample and say, oh, we can identify that this part of the page is just paper, right? But on this part of the page is a different chemical composition. There are basically latent fragments, if you will, of where ink once was. And that is how our characters end up seeing that there are bits and pieces of a cipher here on this page. So it's a real technique that they could very well have used in this way. But now, y'all are experts in multispectral imaging. We want to test you and see if you could be scientists on Ben Gates' treasure hunting team.
Yes. So we want to see if you can match these images with the results that you would get from multispectral imaging. So here we have a picture of parchment with ink. We have the Statue of Liberty, and then we also have the infamous Cibola. So just quick raise of hands, or I guess not raise of hands, call it out. Which one of these do you think is copper?
Call it out. All right.
Okay. How about gold? Okay, yeah, I mean, I kind of gave that to you. How about the iron? I heard iron gall. Yeah.
There we go. All right, let's see. You guys are correct. All right, that was nicely done. That was too easy.
Okay, I don't know.
Let's do a little bit harder one, okay? I hope you remember your periodic table.
No pressure.
Oops. Wow, I hope you didn't see that. Your new samples here are the wooden Olmec plank, the granite boulders at Sylvan Lake, and on the right, we have Abigail's pearl earring. All right, so what do you think is made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? Okay, I hear plank. How about calcium, carbon, and oxygen? Okay, and the last one, everything else, silicon, aluminum, oxygen, potassium, et cetera, et cetera. All right, okay. I think we had some good answers there. Did everyone get it right? Raise your hand.
Anybody get it completely right? Yeah?
Yeah, all right.
Okay,
we got
good
some
job.
scientists. Nicely done, nicely done. All right, so we have our science lesson out of the way. Let's move on to part 2, which is our ciphers. Okay, we love a cipher in National Treasure, right? Let's learn a little bit about this one. So as we just said, on the Booth diary page, we end up seeing components of this cipher, which our characters say is a Playfair cipher. Now, Playfair ciphers are quite real. They were invented in 1854 by an English scientist and inventor named Charles Wheatstone. And Playfair ciphers came into more prominent use around World War I when they were used by British armed forces. But I do like to point out that the National Treasure creators' use of specifically a Playfair cipher in these scenes is very clever. All right, so think about it. We have an Englishman who created a cipher just a handful of years before the US Civil War. Now, later on in National Treasure 2, you might recall that in this sort of fictionalized version of history, the movie's going to purport that Queen Victoria and the British were supporting John Wilkes Booth and the Confederacy. So it would make some strategic sense that John Wilkes Booth and his co-conspirators would be using a pretty novel cipher devised by the British in this way. Now, I like pointing this out because it's one of those things where if you're watching these scenes and you're not really thinking about it, taking it at face value, it's great, right? But if you dive just a little bit deeper and analyze the history, all of these choices are very deliberate. I think personally that's really cool.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we could go on about ciphers for a long time because they're really cool. We do actually teach you how to solve a Playfair cipher in our book. However, doing it on a screen like this is a little complicated. So what we decided to do this evening is to teach you how to solve an Ottendorf cipher. So for those of you who don't remember, an Ottendorf cipher is what was found on the back of the Declaration of Independence in the first National Treasure film. And this way, once we're complete this activity, everybody can go home with a new skill on their resume, which I'm sure every job will love, right?
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Okay, so what we need for an Ottendorf cipher is a set of, or 3 sets of letters, and we also need a key text. Now, it just so happens the key text that we have chosen is a page from our book. Convenient, right? The first of the numbers here is the page number of our key text itself. The second is going to be the line on that page, and the third is going to be the letter on that specific line.
Mm-hmm. And there are other variations, right, to how this can be interpreted.
There are. So you can also have a version where instead of page line letter, it is paragraph line letter, and that's going to become important in a second.
Actually, let's do it right now.
Yeah.
How? Shall we? We have another test for you. Can you crack an Ottendorf cipher, you guys? Another test to see if you can be part of Ben Gates' team.
We know, you thought you were just coming in here for a nice chill little talk, and now we're giving you tests. But what we have here is our cipher itself, and then our hint is that this is in a paragraph line letter format. The key text that we have chosen is here on the right, and it is actually taken from the Declaration of Independence, which feels appropriate for, you know, where we are. So we'll give you, I don't know,
just a minute or two. This is a speed test, all right? See if you can crack this cipher. Take just a minute or two.
I love the intensity I'm seeing
Yeah.
on some people's faces.
Good
It's
luck.
fantastic. Well,
Give you like another minute. Told you it was a speed test. No, spaces are not counted. Good question. No, punctuation is also not counted. Good questions, though.
yeah.
I like how, again, how seriously we're taking this.
Some people have notepads out. Audrey.
Wow. All right, we're gonna give it another couple seconds.
Your last guess is in.
All right. We're gonna say time's up.
Yeah.
Do we have any guesses? Any guesses, yeah? Almost, not quite, not quite. Any other guesses? You can call them out if you want. All right, let's see if you are right. Nicely done.
Yes,
all right.
round of applause.
And a speed test at
Yeah,
that. Like that was
fantastic.
impressive. All right. So now you guys have a bona fide skill for your resume. Congratulations. We will vouch for you. All right, let's move on now to the subject that I think most people think about, like academic-wise, when they think National Treasure, and that, of course, is history. Now, one of my pet peeves personally is that a lot of people think that all of the history in both National Treasure films is completely made up. And it turns out that in reality, almost every person, place, or event that you see in both National Treasure films is at least inspired by a person, a place, or an event that actually happened in some way. Or it's based on a legend that exists in the real world. And I think a really great example of this in National Treasure 2 is the case of the Resolute desks, the one in Buckingham Palace in our movie and in the Oval Office. Of course, if we're going through the film, we found our Cipher. It led them, again, overseas to Europe and eventually to London, where our characters tinker with a Resolute desk in the Queen's study, and then back here in the United States in the Oval Office. The reason I like examining this as a case study is because the story National Treasure 2 tells about the Resolute desk and the HMS Resolute is like 98% true. And just to give you a fuller sense of that story, I'll relay it quickly. The story actually starts in 1850 when Great Britain purchases a merchant ship called the Ptarmigan, and they completely retrofit the ship to turn it into an Arctic exploration vessel. They rename it the HMS Resolute. Now they have a very specific purpose in mind for the Resolute. They're going to pair it up with a few more ships, and in 1852 they're going to send it on a rescue expedition to the Canadian Arctic, let's say, in search of a lost expedition led by an Englishman named Sir John Franklin. Now, Sir Franklin had gotten lost on an expedition searching for a northwest passage to the Pacific Ocean. And so these ships head out in 1852 looking for that expedition. They end up being partially successful. In late 1853, they do find one of Sir Franklin's ships, but it's too late in the year to be able to sail back to Great Britain. Things are starting to freeze around them. So they're going to hunker down and kind of weather the winter in the ice, and when the spring thaw comes, they plan to sail back to Great Britain. But then something really weird happens, something that truly we don't fully understand the origins of to this day, and that is the fact that in early 1854, the commander of the rescue mission, Sir Edward Belcher, orders his crew to abandon ship before the thaw. This is kind of odd because it results in the rescue mission needing to be rescued, you could say. And they are, it's great, they're fine, they get rescued, but the Resolute is abandoned in the ice, and it will remain there for over a year. In late 1855, over a year later, it will be salvaged by a group of American whalers. US Congress gets wind of this. They purchase the ship back from the whalers, completely deck it out to look like what it looked like when the British were on board, and they send it back overseas to Great Britain as a celebration, a gesture of goodwill, okay? The ship arrives to much fanfare. There's actually a celebration, but the fanfare doesn't actually last too long because within 3 years, the HMS Resolute is scheduled to be decommissioned. And when I say decommissioned, I mean like completely dismantled.
Yeah, it's not one of those like docking situations. It's just
Like,
torn
take
apart.
it apart. So at this point, Queen Victoria does request that some desks be made from its timbers. One of them is currently part of the British Royal Collection. This is the one that our characters purport to, work with, let's say, in the Queen's study at Buckingham Palace. The second one was gifted to the President of the United States as the Resolute desk that is frequently found, but not always found, in the Oval Office of the White House. Again, that's the big picture here on the screen with Ben Gates. And the only thing that National Treasure gets wrong about this story is that it's not 2 desks that were made from the timbers, but 3. The third desk is actually a smaller writing desk that was gifted by the Queen to the widow of an Englishman who funded a lot of those rescue missions for Sir Franklin. Okay, so really, all in all, National Treasure is telling the real story here. And I could talk for hours about how they filmed both of these scenes in Buckingham Palace and the Oval Office, air quotes, because they did not film them at these places. But if you're interested in that, ask about it in the Q&A. But I do think that while we're on the topic of history, we would really be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that, yes, Ben Gates is in the Oval Office, looking for this Olmec plank. And when he gets into the desk, much to his dismay, the plank is missing, and it has been replaced by the seal of the president's Book of Secrets. Now, something that surprises a lot of people is that the legend of a president's Book of Secrets is not something that National Treasure invented. This is an urban legend that has been around for decades, if not centuries.
Yes, so first and foremost, the president's Book of Secrets is not here. Very sorry. But yes, let's talk about the urban legend of it. So one of the ideas of where this came from is something known as the Culper spy ring. Okay, now this was a group that worked, of informants really, that worked for George Washington during the Revolutionary War. So they were operating around 1778, and their main job was to bring information to him about British movements. Mm-hmm. It's not really a book, but like it's information, it's spy, like maybe it could be a secret. Well, it is a secret, but I don't know about book. We get a little more into writing territory with our next idea, which is that maybe this comes from the letters that presidents leave their successors after they finish their term. They tend to leave these in the Oval Office for the next president to receive. So that is written, right? That's on paper, theoretically. So book, maybe, I don't know. The most likely origin of this myth is the idea of the president's daily briefing. So every day the president gets a lot of information that is compiled for them, a lot of secret intelligence and whatnot. And this, honestly, it's tailored for each president. So some will get it in an iPad format, some will get it in a notebook format. And, you know, that is a book with secrets that the president has. So maybe.
Yeah, that could absolutely, that's probably the most likely origin of this legend. All right, so we did our history lesson today, which leaves us one more thing, I think, to talk about, which is like the lighthearted and fun part, the Hollywood magic, the behind the scenes. And that brings us here, of course, to the Library of Congress. So Emily already kind of told you that the Book of Secrets isn't here, but I do want to point out that there are plenty of books in the library's collections called Book of Secrets, so if you think it's here, you're not 100% wrong. That being said, once Ben kidnaps the president and learns where the book is, being here at the library, they come to the Jefferson Building, quite literally. So almost every scene surrounding this one purporting to be at the Library of Congress was actually filmed here, which I think is really, really cool. So they film at the Library of Congress for 2 weekends in March and April of 2007, so the same year that the movie comes out. And filming takes place from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. each of those days. So like completely overnight, so as to minimize disruptions to the library's normal operations, right? Filming here required 50 extras to be brought in to the library, a crew of about 100 people, so it's quite the big production, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, you end up seeing a number of parts of the library if you know where to look, as these scenes are flashing through very quickly until we get to this one. So, for example, our characters will very quickly walk through the Great Hall. At some point, we see Abigail and Riley walking down the kind of hidden staircase that's in the circulation desk in the center of the main reading room. You also see Abigail and Riley at one point purporting to run through sort of the tunnels or like the basement structure at the library. But this one here on screen is obviously the most famous of the scenes where we're actually finding the secret book. And this is supposedly taking place in one of the balconies overlooking the main reading room. Now, when the production team comes to the Library of Congress to film, they see these balconies and they're like completely empty. And so I don't know, I feel like if I was part of the production team and I saw that, I'd be like, oh, empty space, nothing really for us to work with. We should just go make a set back in Hollywood so we can like use it at our own time when it works
Not film
for
at 5
us.
a.m.
Yeah, that's not what they do. They actually bring in set designers and set decorators to come fill up the balcony with shelves, fill them with books, big tables, ladders, you name it, so that they can film this scene actually here at the Library of Congress. And I'm going to tell you exactly where you can see this balcony as well. So when you go visit the main reading room this evening, I want you to look up and take a look at the statues that are kind of overlooking the room. You're going to find the statue of Robert Fulton and the statue of St. Paul the Apostle, and look at the balcony between the two, and that is where this was filmed.
Yes. And so, picture that bookcase with the special collection section there. Don't go up there. Don't try to do that. But I do want to mention that the XY kind of reference part of this special collection section was fabricated for the movie, although there are many books in the Library of Congress and other forms of media that are obviously considered very special. Mm-hmm. But I think I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of wrap up this little part by talking about this President's Secret book itself. The prop is absolutely ridiculously awesome. And I realize that was a lot of adjectives, but it's true, okay? So the original design for the President's book was that it was an extremely large book with an actual lock on it, okay? They scaled that down to basically be like a notebook that you could see George Washington, possibly having written in, which, you can kind of see here. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of pages in this book. Every single page of this prop was filled with writing or inserts, which you can see some of the inserts kind of sticking out of the book a little bit there too. Now, every page except for the ones that you see directly on camera actually have writing directly from past presidents, okay? The ones that you do see on camera are not written by past presidents, but are written with very, very specific detail to the handwriting of those presidents in order to preserve kind of what president would have been writing in the book at a given time. So the next time you go and watch that scene, take a look and you'll notice as they flip through very quickly, there are a lot of different handwritings in there. And, honestly, I could continue to talk about this. It's fascinating. If you want to know more about this, obviously you can ask us, but also we have a whole podcast episode where we did get to interview Ross McDonald, who was the prop master for this. Mm-hmm. And he has so many amazing stories to share about this. So definitely you should check that out.
Yeah, super cool. All right, you guys. So just like that, we went through and learned a bit about the science and the ciphers and the history and the behind the scenes of just a few scenes in National Treasure 2. And it turns out that you can do this kind of analysis with every scene in both movies in this franchise. And that is exactly what we do in our book, National Treasure Hunt: One Step Short of Crazy. Anyone catch the movie quote in the title from the
I'm guessing by the laughs. I hope so. Otherwise, they think we're crazy.
Yeah, well, passionate, as Ben Gates would say. So here's just a sampling of some of the topics that we are able to kind of break down for you in our book. So, on the history side, for example, we're talking about the history of places like Mount Vernon and Mount Rushmore, but also telling you how, like the nuance behind actually filming at these sites, because yes, they actually filmed at these sites. On the science side, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, we all love the stealing the Declaration of Independence heist, right? We talk about the science of the invisible ink that they find on the back of the Declaration. Ben Gates' heist to steal the Declaration, he uses all sorts of like fingerprint revealing techniques. We talk about what would work, what wouldn't work in those contexts. And all of this plus how the musical score contributes to the plot, the ethics of character decisions, and truly so much more. So, with that, we hope that this discussion has led you to be intrigued, to maybe think about or look into National Treasure just a little bit further, whether that's by listening to our podcast, reading our book, or joining us on our semi-annual walking tour right here in Washington, D.C.
Yes, so for more information about us, you can go ahead and scan that QR code, or you can follow and tag us at NT Hunt Podcast on Twitter and Instagram.
At the very least, you guys, we hope that the next time you watch National Treasure, and especially National Treasure 2: Book of Secrets, you look at things just a little bit differently. But until then, thank you all so much for joining us on our National Treasure Hunt, and we're excited to take your questions. So we would like you to stump us. Ask us the hardest national treasure questions you can think of. I see a question here.
I'll use my teacher's voice.
Love it.
It's about a question to support the previous, director of the National Archives said that one of the most asked questions
Yeah.
that he would receive, either in a meeting or privately, is how about this National Treasure document? So it just shows how much it did have an influence and effect on Washington, D.C. and history.
It
Yeah.
really did, and it still does to this day, right? I mean, people are coming to places like the archives, like here at the Library of Congress. Mount Vernon still has a National Treasure Tour to this day.
Yeah, if you haven't done that, you should definitely, it's very fun.
Yeah, it really has had an impact, which is so exciting. We have one of our shirts actually says like stealing the Declaration of Independence. We went to the archives with that shirt once, and the guards had fun with it. I'll just say that. Questions? See one here?
Just a quick question. So what got you so interested in not only National Treasure, but researching all of this enough to put it in a book?
Yeah.
That's a great question. So Aubrey and I were actually college roommates. We went to Ursinus College, which is a small liberal arts college, where we very much were, I guess, like brought up in that sense in this interdisciplinary kind of idea. Aubrey and I don't have many things in common, though we did live together for 3 years in college. And we found out that one of the things we had in common was that we both liked National Treasure, which was kind of a random thing to find out, but it was cool. And then, we lost touch for a few years when we went to grad school. And then COVID happened. We were both kind of lacking some of our normal creative outlets. And Aubrey gave me a call and suggested maybe we start a podcast about National Treasure. And it literally just, the passion all came rushing back for the interdisciplinary stuff. It was a great outlet for both of us. And then writing the book just seemed like kind of the next step in the process and a better way to disseminate information to people who maybe don't like to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise, really, we knew people loved National Treasure, but like seeing it firsthand, this community that we were able to kind of collect, made it really exciting for us to kind of expand beyond the podcast into our book, our tour, and other activities. Thanks.
I think we've got one over here.
How many people do you think actually have access to the back of the Declaration of Independence?
That's a great question. Well, I don't know the exact answer, of course. I would think very few. Very few is a safe assumption. We did actually have the pleasure of interviewing some conservators from the National Archives on our podcast in really our first season. And they were able to share details of how the conservation works for this document and for obviously many others. But they did convince us that the document is incredibly secure even amongst the employees of the archives.
And they weren't really able to tell us more beyond that for obvious reasons, like that's good. But yeah, I would assume, a handful.
I see a couple here and here, and
there's a lot.
yeah, I'll let our microphones handle that.
Hi, I'm a digital conversion technician at the library.
Cool.
And we digitized all 23 collections of presidential papers we have here from Washington to Coolidge. I did some spreadsheet work to help with that. I was just wondering what Library of Congress digitized collections aided your preparation of this book, if any?
That's actually a really, really good question. We had to read up on, obviously, quite a bit of history here. Some of the things that I recall looking on the library's website about was related to the Beale ciphers, which was Library of Congress plus, I think, FBI documentation. For those who are unaware, the Beale ciphers is a case that we actually argue is what the writing on the back of the Declaration in National Treasure is very loosely inspired by.
Yeah.
We can go into more of that, or you can read our book on it. So that is the one that comes to mind immediately for me. But there were definitely several. Your collections are obviously robust and very much appreciated by folks like us.
Yes, they were very helpful.
I've got one right here.
You had mentioned a little bit more about the Resolute desks and the filming of that. I was just wondering if you could share that.
Thank you so much for asking.
She didn't prompt you for that at all.
Yeah, okay, so I'll give the short version.
Yeah, okay.
So for the London, the Buckingham Palace component, they obviously did not film in Buckingham Palace, but they did actually film in a government-owned building that's nearby called Lancaster House. That house is frequently used as a stand-in for Buckingham Palace in cinema. The room that they used in that space is, if you look at the scene very closely, it's very green, like in terms of aesthetics. It's sort of modeled off of, if you're trying to analogize it to a room in Buckingham Palace, it's analogized to what's called the green room in Buckingham Palace that's typically used as either a personal office or a press briefing room.
The Oval Office was a set.
Yeah, of course. The Oval Office was a set, unsurprisingly, probably. And when that set was created, I actually think this is really interesting. The set decorators made an Oval Office that was pretty high fidelity to what George W. Bush's Oval Office design looked like. Probably because President George W. Bush was in office at the time of filming. And
He was not the president in the film, but.
But that being said, one of the reasons that you can actually pick this out if you know what you're looking for, the next time you watch Ben tinkering with the Oval Office Resolute desk, there's this great shot of kind of overhead, and you can see him lying on the ground under the desk working with the drawers. And beneath him you see a rug on the floor, which is a high fidelity replica of the sunbeam rug designed by First Lady Laura Bush during her husband's presidency. So those are some behind the scenes tidbits for you. There are two in the front here. I don't know if here and here.
Hi, just
Hi.
want to say thank you. This was awesome. I was wondering where the third Resolute desk is. You mentioned there's a third one. Where is it?
If my memory serves me correctly, it is in a whaling museum up in Massachusetts.
Yes.
Super weird. I love that.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
National treasure is the treasure that keeps on treasuring.
I have another kind of behind the scenes Hollywood question. So in the first movie, there's a shot of Ben running away from the people that are trying to shoot him. And he's running through a cemetery, which I think is the cemetery outside of like St. Paul's Church in Philadelphia. Do you know, when they filmed that, obviously you can't shoot the tombstones of people who are buried in a real cemetery. Do you know, was it an off-site set during that, or did they have like tombstones planted that had breakaway pieces?
More of the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, more of the latter.
That's
it's
so
actually
cool.
Yeah, it's at the Old Pine Street Church is where that cemetery and that graveyard is in Philadelphia. And I guess I would add that in addition to having sort of like replica type tombstones, you see the same type of technique used on the roof of Independence Hall. So fun fact, Nicolas Cage actually did walk across the roof of Independence Hall in Philadelphia to film that scene. A lot of people think that was filmed in California at Knott's Berry Farm. It is not.
I will say that there was a request by the production team to have him jump off the roof. That was denied. So like walking across was good, but jumping, they were like, that's too far.
But that moment where he kind of walks up and like uses the knife to carve out the brick, that was also a fake facade.
Yeah.
So he's carving something, it's just not the real brick.
Which is good,
Right,
right, yeah.
Right. But that's also,
Leave
it is
Independence
still
Hall
filmed
intact.
on site on the roof.
Very cool, thank you.
There's two questions on this side of the center, it looks like, here and here.
Hi, thank you so much for being here tonight. This has been awesome. We have kind of an off-topic question. We are library students from the University of Maryland, and we were wondering if you had anything to share about the scene where Ben goes to visit his mother at the university.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. So to our knowledge, the interior scenes in that like department, I guess, not actually filmed there.
Yeah, you
But-
probably, yeah, you would know.
However, the scenes on the campus itself, like outside where Ben like freaks out at his dad, like you have a tendency to overreact, that one, that was filmed, right? Where you see it on campus.
Actually, so much so that Aubrey was there, and I got a text from her, and she was like, I was on the campus, and suddenly I'm like looking around, and I'm like, this looks so familiar, and I can't place. And then she was like, I realized it was from National Treasure too.
Yeah. So yes, Emily Appleton, Dr. Emily Appleton.
You call her Dr. Helen Mirren.
We do.
Honestly,
Call her Dr. Helen Mirren. Ben's mom in the film. She purportedly works nearby as a professor at University of Maryland. There's one over here.
So do you guys actually have any insider knowledge on National Treasure 3?
Yay! Everyone, round of applause for the question.
Yes, we do. So we recently had the wonderful opportunity to speak again on the podcast with director of the films, John Turteltaub, where he told us, and I love this quote, there is someone working on it, and if the script is half decent, it is happening.
Yes. Yes. So I feel the need to add additional clarity here. So when Emily says someone is working on it, there is a script writer assigned to the script as we speak. He's working on it as we speak. His name is Ted Elliott. Ted Elliott actually, we should all feel really good about this. Ted Elliott was an uncredited writer on the first National Treasure and a credited screenwriter on the second. He's also works all the time with Jerry Bruckheimer, the executive producer of National Treasure, specifically on the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Ted Elliott wrote all of those movies, as well as like the video games associated with those movies. So like he is an excellent writer. It is being worked on. We also got assurances from John Turteltaub that the whole main cast fully intends to return. Yeah.
Yes. Good reaction, sir.
And the last tidbit is that there is a possibility that our National Treasure 1 villain, Ian Howe, Sean Bean is the actor who plays him, he might just be out of prison now and ready to make a comeback. There's a question here.
So fantastic reactions.
So hopefully that is a good answer to our National Treasure 3 question.
Well, kind of on the topic of National Treasure 3, I wanted to get y'all's opinions on the series that Disney Plus released kind of during the pandemic, and like Riley Poole's like nice little cameo episode, and kind of what you thought about that.
Well, let me start by asking, who here watched National Treasure Edge of History? Okay, actually a decent number of hands. Anyone want to shout out, did you like it? Yeah? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I am very much, we have mixed kind of opinions on it. I'm very much in the camp of like, it's National Treasure, and I got to jump into that world again, and so I'm all for it. I liked the kind of modern approach that they took, trying to address some more like pressing issues, I guess, that, you know, the films don't necessarily. I loved that Riley popped in, honestly, like that was amazing for me. But that's not to say that we didn't have our critiques of the series.
Yeah, I've been overall the more critical one, I think. I loved seeing Riley again, for example, but I don't think he was utilized in as robust a way as he could have been. Like, he spent the whole time, like, locked in a escape room, for lack of better terms.
Spoilers, if you haven't seen it.
I mean, it's not really giving anything
fine.
away. He's fine, yeah.
We just said he would come back for the third one, so he's fine.
Yeah. So of course, as you probably know, Disney did not renew the show for a second season. I personally liked the way it wrapped up. I thought the twist with Agent Hendricks, which that's all I'll say for those who didn't watch it, I thought it was fantastic, that part, the second half. We actually had the pleasure of attending the Hollywood premiere of Edge of History and interviewing the cast on the red carpet. And I will say that knowing the enthusiasm firsthand that all of the cast had, everyone from the lead, Lizette Oliveira, who's much newer on the acting scene, compared to someone like Catherine Zeta-Jones, who's a very established figure who played the villain in the show. Everyone had so much passion and enthusiasm for the project, and it meant a lot to them to be part of this franchise family, which was really nice to see.
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay.
Boy, do I get to be the last one.
I guess so.
Were there any scenes filmed here at the library that didn't make it into the final cut?
Yes, yes there were. One that I would love to draw to your attention, and this you can actually see online. It's a deleted scene that is available if you go looking for it. Well, I guess it was, there are a couple tiny tidbits of scenes filmed here, others that were purported to film here. I'll explain what I mean by that. There are some where you see Agent Sadusky kind of wiping the doorknob to where the special collections section was supposedly at to like kind of wipe off Ben's fingerprints. Kind of weird. That was cut from the movie, but was filmed here. But the bigger one, I think, and it wasn't actually filmed here, and you'll understand why in a second, but it's supposed to take place here, is Agent Sadusky having chased Ben onto the roof of the Great Hall. You guys familiar with the Great Hall? Like the stained glass ceiling? You could imagine how that would have been a problem to film here. So you have
It's okay at Independence Hall, but
not here.
Not Library of Congress that have higher standards, I guess.
So you see Ben actually like walking across the roof and the glass starting to shatter beneath his feet.
Yeah, that would have been so bad.
And Agent Sadusky is like threatening to shoot him, actually. Which is, we have so many conversations. If you want to get us talking for a long time, ask us about the relationship between Ben and Agent Sadusky, because it is very odd, right? It's like very confusing. Yeah, I feel very strongly about it. But yes, those are some examples of scenes taking place here that didn't make the cut. Thank you.
So, Aubrey and Emily are going to sign right now. And sorry, you didn't get your question asked, but they're just going to sign right back here. And they did a great job with this book and have put so much love into this. And let's thank them for being here.
Thank you all so much.